Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, the ice storm really wreaked havoc with so many radio stations, mostly power. Well, Stan Carter with K-Love Air 1 and Gibson Prichard with NewsChannel 5 here in Nashville are here to talk about their adventures, how they recovered, what the challenges were, and what we need to be thinking about for next time. That's all coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Air, featuring Playout One radio automation software, comprehensive streaming solutions, website content management, and social media tools for maximum listener engagement on the web at AIIR.com. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb from the top of the tower, that one right back there. Hi there, I'm Kirk Harnack in Nashville, Tennessee. Delighted that my power is back on after being no shore power, no commercial power available for 11 days here at Harnack Central on the south side of Nashville. But we got power back on and absolutely delighted. You know, last week our show was powered by a little single cylinder, single piston generator. That thing had to sing its heart out, man, for 11 days. So glad to have commercial power back on. So we're here to talk about the obvious, the big storm, especially the ice and the difficulties that caused for broadcasters across a lot of the southern and south central United States, starting the very end of January and then continuing through many days and a few days in February. That's what we're going to be talking about. Hey, I'm in Nashville, but we have two guests, one of whom is in Mississippi. Ladies and gentlemen, from the sprawling metropolis of Boca Chica, Mississippi. Hope I said that right. It's Stan Carter. Hey, Stan, welcome in. Good to see you.
Thank you, Kirk. Pleasure to be here.
You look like you are really ensconced in an engineering office. Are you at your home?
Yes, I am. I am actually at my home office / mad scientist lab right now.
Tell us just a little bit about Stan Carter. Give me the elevator speech on who you are and what you do.
Short version, I started out as a part-time weekend DJ at a local AM gospel station. Ended up moving to a little larger station and worked some overnight shifts. Chief engineer used to come in and do maintenance when I was there. And he figured out very quickly that I had the aptitude, came in and asked me one day, hey, I'm going to be hiring an assistant chief. Would you be interested in it? I said, yes. That was around 1987 or 1988. And I've been engineering for radio full time since then. And for the past 12 years, I have been a field engineer in Mississippi for K-Love, Air 1, Radio Nueva Vida, all the EMF stations.
Wow. Okay. All right. And so what's your territory that you cover and how many transmitter sites?
I've got approximately 26 transmitter sites that I cover. It's all of the state of Mississippi. Mm-hmm. There's a small corner of Tennessee that covers the Memphis area. Oh, yeah. And then down south, I cover Louisiana, east of the Mississippi River, which is basically New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And then I also have a site over in Mobile, Alabama. So technically I cover 4 states, but most of it's just based right around Mississippi.
Well, good deal. Well, we'll delve into a little bit of that and hear about where you've had problems and successes over the last couple of weeks. Also with us, a fellow who lives literally about 2.5 miles away from me, and it's but Gibson. I guess you're probably downtown. It's Gibson Prichard, but he's another Mississippian. So we got 2 Mississippian guests on our show today. Hey, Gibson, welcome in.
Hi there. Yeah, I grew up in Mississippi. went to high school in Jackson and college at Mississippi State, but I am in Nashville, have been for the past little bit, 30-something years. I'm the director of engineering for this EW Scripps owned News Channel 5 television, WTVF, here in Nashville, as well as I have some regional engineering duties responsible for other Scripps properties in different states across the country. Not as geographically aligned as Stan, all centralized, but I have responsibilities from Milwaukee to Lexington, Kentucky, out to San Diego, and some in Montana. So I've got some regional operative duties that take me away from Nashville as well. But yes, I'm here in Nashville.
I didn't realize that you had likely as many airline miles as you do. I thought you've pretty well stayed here, but no, you travel from time to time.
I have not done as much traveling as it might sound, but yes, I do have a travel responsibility that takes me to other states.
So Gibson has, he's been on the show before. Stan, I don't think you've been on the show before, so welcome in. And, but Gibson has often been my go-to guy when I need something explained or something described or a concept revealed, because Gibson is just a fantastic engineer. Not that Stan isn't. I'm just not as close to Stan, but Gibson, when he comes to our SBE meetings here in Nashville, he always asks the good questions, the ones that maybe some other people are afraid to ask or don't know quite how to verbalize. And Gibson does a great job of that. So Gibson, you've got a fan over here on Granny White Pike. So I sure appreciate you.
Right. That's awfully kind, Kirk. And for the record, I have not paid you anything for that endorsement.
Well, neither has Stan. So, there we go. We got to jump to our opening commercial here, our opening sponsor, who pays to be early in the show. And when we come back, we're going to look at lots of pictures and hear stories and challenges about this ice storm, and then see what advice what would you do differently after we find out just how bad it was for Stan and for Gibson and their operations. I'm Kirk Harnack. It's This Week in Radio Tech, episode 786, and our show is brought to you in part by my really good friends at Playout One and Air.com. The company is called Air, AIIR.com. Let's check in with Ricky Lee.
Hey, it's Kirk Harnack, and I'm here with Ricky Lee, the CEO of Air. Ricky, you guys make a fantastic automation system, but streaming is a really big deal. Tell me about streaming with Air.
It really is. We've got a beautiful streaming platform with an incredible dashboard with fantastic analytics. And you can buy it for just $20 a month, all you can eat. No limits on bandwidth or bit rates. And you can also record shows as well. So if you like to deliver on-demand content for $20 a month, you can stream and deliver that on-demand content to an RSS feed that can feed your radio player, your mobile apps, or a podcast that people can download and enjoy.
Now, $20 a month, that must be for just some slow MP3, right?
No, MP3, AAC, and we also now support HLS, which is big in the industry right now.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. How do I start to explore or find out more about streaming through Air?
You go to air.com, AIIR.com/streaming. And from there, with a credit card, you can sign up and get started.
Easy peasy. Really appreciate the folks at Air, Ricky Lee and Dave Brierly-Jones and all the others. Their support is fantastic. If you're a Playout One user, you probably know that. We enjoy really good support from them. Thanks, Air, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. And if you're going to NAB, I'll be in the Air booth from time to time, just giving testimonial and answering some questions and directing traffic. All right, This Week in Radio Tech, we're talking about, of course, the ice storm. Stan, if you had to pick, a big major challenge that occurred with you almost 2 weeks, 10, 11, 12 days ago, what would you pick out to say, oh man, this was bad?
Biggest problem we had, really wasn't related to anything that we had done. Biggest thing was the power utilities at most of our sites, because we've got a lot of sites that are very rural, are way out in the country. And biggest problem was as soon as the trees started icing up, as soon as the power lines started icing up, power was out. We have several sites that do not have generators. The ones that did have generators, which we try to maintain, all kicked in and ran for several days on generator. But yeah, biggest issue was a few antennas that didn't have radomes or heaters iced up, and then utility power went off. But actually, I was very pleased that we had no equipment damage sites once everything had thawed out and the power had come back on. And I think I'm back on. And I think that's just a testament to the quarterly maintenance programs that we put in, and we keep track of it to be fixed. EMF has always been real good about saying, go ahead and get it fixed. So, keeping up with everything at the site, it helped. No broken antenna elements, thank goodness. No lines, coax broken. We did have a neighboring broadcaster up in North Mississippi, up around the Belzona area, didn't fare so well. He lost about the top 160, 170 feet of his tower, and he still is going to be a while before he recovers from that. But as far as my sites, just power outages, and once the power came back on about a week or two later, we were pretty good shape.
Wow. Good deal. Good deal. Glad to hear it. And I'm surprised to hear of no real damage, especially from falling ice. And I want to explore that a bit more in a few minutes, because I'm curious about, I've been around towers that had ice shedding off the tower, and I had not heard anything about that occurring with this particular ice storm. Gibson, maybe you have a different story. What have been your challenges over the past 10 days?
Well, I was wearing this hard hat. You notice I have a wrist brace on. I was wearing a hard hat, and so that I would not be struck by falling ice, or if I was struck, it would at least hopefully not injure me. But I did, in the process of walking down our transmitter hill, did slip and fall. I fractured my hand, but it's fortunately not a bad thing. It's in the process of healing. But with a tower, our tower's a few feet shy of 1,200 feet. So, there's a lot of steel in the air. There's a lot of things to hold ice. It's a heavily wooded area. And so there's ice both off the tower and off the trees as you walk through the compound or through the property. So in our case, the hill is steep enough. It's about an 11% grade. Although it is a paved road, it's an 11% grade. And that means that any ice on the road makes the road pretty hard to climb. You've got to have, in most cases, something with tracks, either with snow chains on tires, which are not terribly common anymore, particularly not in the South, or something like a backhoe or a bulldozer to climb the hill, something that will, dig into the ice. And then once you get the road cleared, it makes it a little more passable. But, that was my issue. I slipped and fell on the ice. But yes, there was a lot of falling ice pellets. Sometimes there would be a spear of ice, and I was not hit by any, but there was a lot of it stuck in the ground around the tower. So, tree limbs falling. That was the biggest thing for us, was tree limbs. That's what took our power down. Yeah. We have 3-phase power from our local electric utility, and we had, I think it was 4 poles. The power comes up the side of our hill that does not have a road on it. It's a cut through a hillside, and it's about a 40% grade. It's very steep, meaning that it's hard for them to service, and they don't do perhaps as well of a job trimming the trees on a regular basis as they could. So we had 3 poles that shattered, a 4th one that cracked, and they replaced them all as well as the lines, which took several days to accomplish. It was a large, I guess it was probably 7 bucket trucks, 7 trucks total, not all with buckets, but pole trucks, and, people doing the digging and people cutting trees. So yeah, it was a mess.
Well, we'll tell you what, we're going to jump to photos here pretty early in the show, so we can show people, give them an idea of what we're talking about here. It's funny, not funny. You mentioned slipping on the ice, and that was the biggest personal hazard for you. And I don't know what it was about this storm, but man, the ice was so slippery compared to other ice experiences that I've had. And I'll just tell you, the first day, whatever it was, last week, Tuesday or maybe Wednesday, when delivery trucks could come through the neighborhoods. It looked like
Right.
UPS and FedEx and the Postal Service had all dropped boxes. But me and my neighbors, we have our mailboxes hundreds of feet down the road at the main road. We live up a little private driveway here, and those delivery wouldn't come up the private driveway. So I got home from a trip out to get gasoline for the generator, and each of my neighbors' mailboxes had a box sitting in the road near the mailbox. I thought, well, I'll be a good guy. I'll be a good neighbor and go pick up these boxes and take them up the hill to my neighbors, drop them off where they should go. And one of my neighbors, apparently he ordered, I'm sorry, this is the best I can do. He ordered this little portable sauna. I thought, well, I'm kind of jealous of that. And he wasn't home because his power was completely off. He had no generator. So I put the sauna up there. Well, I knew his steps were a little bit icy. And so I took a picture of the sauna being there to send to him. And then I turned around and started down these brick steps with ice. On my way up, I had crunched the ice a little bit and I got a good footing. On the way down, apparently the crunchiness went away and I just was on the ice. My phone, my camera app was still open on the phone. And apparently my thumb was still over the trigger. This is me falling. Okay. In the act of falling. And as soon as I fell, this was my view. So, that's laying
there's
on
no
my
audio
back.
associated. We don't get to hear all the pleasantries that you may have omitted. Right.
Get rid of the pleasantries. Let's continue with the pictures, and I'm sure you guys will recognize what some of these pictures make you think of. Suncast, if you want to start with that photo album. Now, I didn't take this picture. Somebody took it with a drone, or I don't know. This picture looked too much like AI to me. Gibson, did you see this picture that was posted all over Nashville?
No, it doesn't specifically look familiar, but it's certainly plausible. I mean, I would not guess that's AI, but I don't know. I mean, I have seen areas that look like that around Nashville.
Well, some people who I know who are normally reliable people posted this on Facebook, and you know what? This does match the destruction that occurred in my neighborhood. Let's move on to the next one. And I'm just giving you a flavor here of what we saw. This is my house. Solar panels covered with ice and snow, so they didn't do any good. And the driveway's impassable. And let's go to the next one. I did want to point out how in the morning when the sun was coming up over the ridge, how beautiful the ice looks coming through the trees. I mean, it does look pretty, but it sure is freaking deadly. Next here, we've got a little short video. This is driving up Granny White Pike, or driving south on Granny White Pike. My house is just up the hill to the right, up the cliffs actually to the right. And the police had Granny White Pike blocked off several times. But I just want to point out just the destruction here with the trees coming down. And, of course, wherever there were power lines, and there's power lines just up on the left-hand side of the street here, how bad it really got and how many lines were taken down. Gibson, you said you had four broken poles on the way to the transmitter site?
4 broken poles, right? Yeah, on the section, just our transmitters at the end of a subdivision, residential subdivision in the city of Nashville. And so there were, I don't know, probably 18 or 20 poles in the residential subdivision where all the houses, and at the end of the houses on the hill going up our road, up our hill to our transmitter, there are 4 or 5 poles, and 4 of them were either split or totally broken in half. So yes,
and
there were some sizable.
What triggered them to break? Was it ice on the lines or trees on the ice on the lines?
The latter, trees on the lines, and the lines covered with ice. So just the weight of the ice on a tree causes it to fall, which then it falls across the power lines, and that is part and parcel of regular maintenance, cutting those trees. That's not land that we own. It's land. It's an easement, so it's the responsibility to trim those trees falls on the electric utility. And there's always the Monday morning quarterback looks back and says, "Oh well, gosh, it'd be great if they would have trimmed all those trees." And I don't disagree with that, but the finances for the electric utility to go around and trim every tree that's touching every line is, that's a big program. And, they admit to cutting some of their budgets or spending less this year than they did in previous years on tree trimming. So yeah, that's what happened. Yeah. Falling trees, taking down power lines.
I was surprised at how heavy ice is. And the way I discovered that was we were moving branches off of our driveway, and the branches were still coated with what seemed like close to a half inch of ice. It may have been a little bit less than half an inch, certainly more than a quarter inch. And those branches were just like, oh my gosh. I mean, this tree, first of all, it was nearly dead, and it's in the dead of winter. So it's not like the tree was just full of sap, right? The tree branches are as light as they're going to be throughout the year. And yet these branches got heavy with all the ice on them. Stan, please feel welcome.
If they were evergreen, if they had if they had leaves or, pine needles or cedar trees with foliage, are just extraordinarily heavy under ice.
I didn't think about that. We don't have any evergreens on our property. Except
I have quite a few, and they all came down.
Yeah. Oh, gee.
Yeah, that's the problem in our area. We've got a lot of pine trees down here, which stay green year round. And they are great about collecting ice. And once they come down, it's a mess to clean them up.
And they have all that surface area, all those needles and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Let's continue with some photos here real quick. I just wanted to show you. This is what kept me going for 11 days. This poor little, I think I got this thing for $400 from Home Depot or somewhere, mail order. I bought it about 5 years ago. And frankly, I never had changed the oil in it since it was new, and you're supposed to after 8 hours.
Have you changed the oil now?
Yes, about 3 or 4 days into using it, I did stop it long enough to change the oil, and that was
it. Probably looked like molasses.
It was pretty black, but it wasn't. It was still very runny. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so, good.
But I was happy to put new oil, and now it needs another oil change. It's probably run close to 200 hours. So
yeah,
we're going to run it again. Let's take a look. Let's move on. Part of the problem with any utility, if they can't get their trucks to the trouble, and if the trees blocking the way are not in the easement, well, what's their responsibility for moving that so they can get to the to the easement, to the trouble? And we kind of figured, well, we better move. If there's a tree that's on our property that's blocking the way of the trucks, we better take care of that. So we hired an independent guy to cut a lot of it. We still had this big branch hanging down. So my next door neighbor basically threw a rope around it and hooked it to his pickup truck and backed up in 4-wheel low and tore the rest of this branch off the tree. But it did clear the major obstruction in our driveway. So that's an example of taking things in your own hand. By the way, this idea of who's responsible, because we heard anecdotal stories of some people saying, hey, the electric company won't come work on our lines until we get rid of the trees. And the circumstances weren't quite clear. I asked an arborist from North Carolina, and I also asked ChatGPT about policy about that. And the answer I got was, well, under normal circumstances, power company would remove any trees that are impinging upon lines in the right of way. Now, if it's a dead or diseased or rotten tree that's been a nuisance or a hazard for some time, that's on the property owner to take care of that. I don't know how it's hard to resolve that at the point of impact, when it's really affecting you. But the people that live on our street didn't clear any trees that were on or near the power lines after all this, but we did clear trees that were impeding access. Now, Gibson, did you have any experience that would contradict that or agree with that?
No, that's entirely consistent with my understanding. So, I mentioned earlier that my access road to my transmitter is not the path where the electrical utility lines run. It is where we have old telephone lines and fiber optic for our internet come up our access road, and it's the way that we get to the site as well. So we did have to clear, and it's the way that we bring fuel up. So it's our access. So yeah, we had to get a backhoe and a guy with a chainsaw who was able to clear the fallen trees, use the backhoe to push the trees off the road, to cut things, move things in order to do that. And so I've got a couple pictures that show that, but the reality is it is in the case, certainly in the case of mine, which my access road did not involve the electric utility, is definitely our responsibility to maintain it. The part that had the electric utility in it, we felt like it's their responsibility, and they have not disagreed. They have taken that same,
Gotcha.
They seem to have done the same thing. The electric utility cleared the fallen trees first before they began to work on the lines.
Stan, did you find the same policies around your transmitter sites in Mississippi?
Pretty much. But you and I share a site over there in Heads, Mississippi, and of course,
there's not a tree in sight.
Not a tree in sight. So that was not an issue. And believe it or not, that site, I don't believe, according to my records, did not lose power. So I think we managed to stay on at reduced power until the antennas thawed out. But what I did find at my sites where we do have trees along the road, we actually have, from the final utility pole to the building, we've got 3 sites up there in North Mississippi where the power lines are run underground to the meter base on the side of the building. Mm-hmm. So falling trees did not affect that. And any of the falling trees that did affect power outages there were on the right of way of the power company, and they had come through there by the time I got up there to inspect the sites, and it cleaned it out. So we were fortunate having the underground part from the power pole where the transformer is located up to the building.
A lot of people compare this storm to the storm that the Southeast and the Mid-South, where we are, had in 1994. And in Mississippi, we had just had our station on the air for about a year, and there was power was out everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And in fact, we were lucky. Our little tower holding our FM was bent like an S. Had it fallen over, it might have hit in the produce section at Kroger next door. But we got power from some listeners who brought generators, and then the National Guard came out with a good sized generator. And for 2 or 3 weeks, our little station was in Cleveland, Mississippi, was the only station on the air for about 80 miles because nobody had power.
With the S-shaped tower? Did you stay on the air with the S-shaped tower?
Yes, we did.
And did you ever do a pattern study to see how that affected your coverage?
That's a great idea.
Is that something there for making some large amounts of electrical plus mechanical beam tilt? It was actually beam rotation. It turned the beam sideways.
We were.
I suppose it wasn't a directional station, so you weren't afoul of any sort of directional rules, right?
No, we didn't. We were just lucky to be on the air. We did open up our studio as actually the storefront next door to our studio. Our landlord let us take that over for a while, and we used it as a collection point for diapers and canned foods and blankets and things like that. So it really put our station on the map back in 1994. But I don't want to be put on the map that way again. Hey, we got to take a quick break. It's Stan Carter's with us from Boca Chica, Mississippi. Gibson Prichard is here from Nashville, and I'm here in Nashville too. We got a few more amazing pictures and stories to tell and advice to give all coming up. Our show's brought to you in part by our friends at Broadcast Bionics and the amazing, and I do mean amazing because it's modular. You can choose what parts you want to buy or subscribe to, and it's an amazing program called the Bionic Studio. Let's check it out.
Welcome to the Bionic Studio. The Bionic Studio brings all audience interaction to the fingertips of a production team in radio, TV, and podcast. Our workflow-led system is working 24/7 around the world for small broadcasters and national and international networks. Our telephony module, Bionic Talk Show, allows cost-effective centralization, remote operation, scalability, and resilience across an entire network of stations, but at the same time is used in single-studio self-op environments. Social media curation and activity is now considered a broadcast-critical part of programming. Bionic Social means the studio isn't overwhelmed with a wall of interaction from an ever-growing number of social platforms. We combine SMS, MMS and email together with a speech-to-text service for listeners using smart speakers. We enable studio teams to curate, filter and display all platforms in one place and post text, images and video content to multiple platforms in one operation. Effortless collection of video content with Bionic Director has helped position some of the world's most successful stations as leaders in viral content, generating appointments to listen and free marketing via retweets and shares. Bionic Contest enables end-to-end tracking of on-air competitions, live reads and prizes. These could be on-air contests, automated SMS entry or online. Anywhere, and Skype TX for Radio brings high-quality audio and video contribution into the studio with ease. No need for dedicated PCs to run different applications. Everything is controlled within the Bionic Studio UI, and incoming connections are visible to users along with all other platforms. Our codec integration enables connection, algorithm configuration, and directory to a wide range of IP and ISDN codecs. The Bionic Studio, a unique suite of products designed to enable your talent to work smarter.
I'll tell you, these guys at Broadcast Bionics, they really get radio and they invent the coolest stuff. You ought to check it out at bionics.co.uk. Bionics.co.uk. Thank you so much, Dan McQuillan and his amazing team of developers, software and hardware developers at Broadcast Bionics. All right, we're talking about the ice storm and how it affects broadcasters, what we can do maybe to be prepared for it, but we're going to look at a little bit more, some more pictures. Stan and Gibson, hope you don't mind. Let's jump right in because I've got some pictures that I think are going to be of interest here in recovery. This is my neighbor. Oh, this is a little video. It's my neighbor, and he took it upon himself to cut some branches that were still hanging over the power lines that come to the house, the drop, after the transformer. So 240 volts there if it was working. We made sure that it was off. It was definitely off. Come to think of it, he's using my pole saw right there, and he's getting electric power for it from my house. We had to run about 200 feet of extension cord up to his house to make that work. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next picture. The next picture actually is a still of what we saw before. So let's move on from there. After about the ninth day, this showed up in front of my driveway. The mailboxes over to the right are the mailboxes that service the people who live up the driveway, and these guys are from Power Pros. I believe these trucks mostly say Power Pros. We got a picture of the tracked vehicle coming up, and I'm sure Gibson can enlighten us on that. There we go. More, yeah. So that was blocking our drive. That was right in front of my house. So that's at the top of my driveway, and the high voltage line that goes from that pole to my neighbor up the hill was down because trees fell on it. Let's move on. The next one, and we'll see what's next. So you guys can tell me about this. I'm assuming they do this for safety. So this is a single phase going up to service 5 houses where I live, and they have the high voltage jumper to the ground line. Maybe there's a better word for it than ground. Gibson or Stan, who wants to address this procedure?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what they're doing there, and that's just to prevent any backfeeding from folks hooking up generators improperly. Protects the linemen while they're up there working.
That's what I thought, and I noticed that where that 3-phase goes down to the main road, Granny White Pike. Earlier, they had all 3 phases shorted out to a ground line. You can see in this picture that the fuse cutoff, that's the big disconnect switch way up there, that it's down. So the phase that goes up the hill is disconnected from the 3-phase feed up above, and then they've shorted it out while they're working for safety. Let's see what's next. More trucks lining the road and some poles in the back of this truck. Moving on. The poles. There we go. And moving on again. Now that's the one I want to talk about. Gibson, did you see any of these in your neighborhood?
No, but I'm certain that they were around. That they were.
Mhm.
I did see something similar at our transmitter site. What had the aforementioned steep grade. I didn't see it quite like this, but just uh, a all-wheel drive bucket truck, but not a tracked version. I have not. I have not seen a tracked bucket truck like this before.
It's pretty impressive. I didn't see them using this. I don't think they had to in our neighborhood, but I think they deployed it. And it's in fact, it was parked there for about 4 days. So I guess ready to go deal with problems in the area. But I thought that was pretty impressive. Well, next we've got some pictures from Stan. So Stan, you wanted to talk about these? Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, this is actually one of our sites up in North Mississippi. And as you can see, there's still some accumulated ice pellets up on the roof. That is a KU satellite dish and broadcast up converter that we are actually no longer using. As your co-host and a few other guests from EMF had discussed, we have transferred over to IP-based audio delivery at our site. So fortunately, that was not in use. But if it had been in use, I would have been climbing up there and raking snow and ice out of the dish to get us back on the air.
When you have an antenna like this, that's an offset feed, that's got to be a big benefit in terms of snow and ice accumulation, because these antennas get to be much more vertical in their orientation as far as the parabolic reflector than
Yes.
a prime feed dish, right?
They do, but they still will eventually collect enough snow and ice in there to knock them out. And I have spent more than one winter driving from site to site to rake snow out of dishes when they were in use.
Gibson, I'm guessing. Let's run back to a 3-shot. Gibson, I'm guessing
Sure.
at channel 5, do you have some dishes that maybe have heaters in them?
We do. Our primary network dishes are heated. So, I think there one's at 30 amps 3-phase and one's at 50 amps 3-phase. So there's some significant current just heating these dishes. But yeah, they're heated dishes. The circuitry there is some circuitry that actually looks for precipitation, as well as essentially it's a logic circuit that looks at ambient temperature and at precipitation. That feature is long since sort of given up for the world. It is not functional, so we put them on a manual basis, but we can remotely turn them off and on, and so they run pretty much anytime there's frozen precip, say from 35 or 36 degrees Fahrenheit down to in the 20s. That portion where you think there's going to be precip that would stick. So yeah, we have our primary dishes are heated, but that's not everything. As a TV station, we have other signals that we receive via satellite. We've got some diginets or a diginet that comes in, and for that term, like a .3 or .4, a station that we think of as a pass through, something where we're not originating any portion of the day other than passing it through and putting illegal ID and EAS content on it. So those feeds come in via satellite, and that's not a heated dish. Fortunately, it's on the roof of our building and it's easy to get to. So we just had to go out and sweep it, and I think it really was pretty straightforward. We do have essentially like a bug sprayer, like a large pressure, like a 2-gallon pressurized sprayer that we spray antifreeze in, coat the dishes. So it sort of, think of it like putting Rain-X on your windshield. We try to coat the dishes first so they're more slippery, and changes the colloidal properties so that more of the precip rolls off versus sticks to the dishes. I don't know how successful it is, or whether it's just throwing $5 and antifreeze down the drain, but it at least seems to be our policy, and it hasn't proven to hurt anything. So that's what we've been doing. Yeah.
Maybe you could run over to the airport and get some of their, type 1 or type 4 antifreeze that they spray on the.
Well, we actually have recycled our coolant out of our transmitters. The TV station with water cooled transmitters with glycol. We'll when we recycle the glycol or we change it, we'll actually save it and donate it to the airport to use as de-icing fluid, and they're happy to take it.
Really? Wow.
Yep.
That's what a brilliant move. That's really smart.
Well, if you're gonna pay to recycle it, why not give it to somebody who's going to use it?
And yeah, and then let them pay to recycle it if they have
50
to.
gallons worth of antifreeze in water. It's like, well, somebody can use that.
Yeah. Earlier, Stan talked about ice accumulation and reflected power. Gibson, I don't understand the nature of your television transmitting antenna. I'm sure you used to use a bat wing, but you guys are up on a different channel now, I suppose. Tell me about what you experienced with the ice and your transmitting antenna.
We really didn't see any effect. Our antennas are covered with radomes, and there was not thick enough ice for the radome to be affected, for the ice to accumulate on the radome to change any VSWR. So we have we run about 69,000 watts TPO, and we saw about 45 watts reflected, which is about normal. We didn't really see any elevated reflected power. So,
Stan, can you go into a bit more detail on what you experienced? Now, at my stations in the Mississippi Delta, we did get reflected power, and all of our transmitters but one will fold back, and so we actually didn't have to jockey or jostle any forward power. What was your experience in terms of how much VSWR you got from icing?
Well, for the head site there that we share, same thing. We've got a solid state Nautel transmitter there, and it folded back, I think, to about 35% forward power, which the VSWR fold back worked exactly like it was supposed to. That is one of the few antennas I have up in North Mississippi that does not actually have radomes on the antenna. That is that particular antenna does not have them, so it fared the worst. But I had 3 sites further north, up around Grenada, Batesville, and up around Holly Springs. Those 3 antennas are Shively's, and they did come equipped with radomes. And once the power came back on, they never missed a beat. They ramped right up to 100%. So the radomes did their jobs on those.
Good deal. Let's continue with some pictures here. We've got the next one. What are we looking at here, Stan?
That is a drive up to the site that we saw the KU dish up on the roof earlier. That was just where I came into the driveway there, kind of showing the ice accumulation coming up there. Yeah.
Let's look at the next one. We got another picture of the dish, and we see some accumulation in the dish here. There we go.
Yep. That's that same dish from a different angle, and you can see the tower in the background there. And typically on those KU dishes, if they got that much of ice accumulation, they would continue to function, but the signal level would be down considerably. And sometimes the VSAT capability that we were using for remote control may or may not work. Typically, they would stay on the air. If it got much more than that, they pretty much dropped out completely.
All right. Well, the next picture appears to be a tower. So tell us where's this and what's happening?
That tower is located just around the Jackson area, and it is usually the very first tower to ice up anytime we have any weather events that dip down into north and central Mississippi. I don't know why this particular tower does, but it seems to be affected the worst. But that is a shot up the tower, and I know you can see where some of the ice has already broken off the guy wires, and then you can see where some is still hanging on the guy wires. And I thought I had some close-ups, but apparently I didn't save them in that folder that these pictures were in. But you can see the top half of that tower, which that's a 1,000-foot stick. The top half was completely iced. And that is our 12-bay antenna up there towards the top. That's an ERI antenna without radomes, and it probably had about a 1/2 inch of ice on it. And the transmitter did not like that. It folded back pretty drastically.
Huh. All right. Next picture here looks like, where's this?
Yep,
I see a tower on.
Yep, you can see a shot of the tower. That's just a shot through the trees there showing the ice accumulation. And this is typically what affects us the worst down here. The temperature will get right on the edge of freezing, and then it'll start raining. Snow and sleet generally doesn't bother us that bad, but freezing rain, when it collects in the trees like that and on the towers, that's where we get the most damage.
You know, Stan and Gibson, even though I've done a lot of meteorology on TV and went through the Mississippi State broadcast meteorology course years ago, 25 years ago, it's still sometimes, you know, every 10 or 15 years, those who live in our area are reminded of the significant difference between sleet and freezing rain. We kind of forget about that when we don't have to worry about it. But when it hits, it's like, oh yeah, I remember now. Sleet, okay, bounces off stuff, you know, but freezing rain, bad. Is that?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, you
man.
know, it's all about what sticks, and it's all about the ambient temperature of what the rain is falling on, what the precip is falling on. So sometimes sleet is more like hail, and it falls and it just bounces, and sometimes it's sleet that falls on something that's, you know, to which it sticks, and then it looks like all the pictures you've shown of trees covered in ice. That sleet becomes ice pretty quick. You know, sleet will stick to stuff at the right. If it's sort of slushy, it's like what you get at the 7-Eleven. If it's a slushy and you pour it on something, it's gonna, sort of solidify.
Got a couple more pictures here. Let's go ahead and take a look at those. Two more. All right, Stan.
Yeah, I think, let's see, that was pulling on to the paved road headed out to the site. And as you can see, there was still a good accumulation of ice and just slush right there on the road. So I was creeping along in 4-wheel drive at a pretty slow pace to get there.
And our last picture, we have a truck and a chunk of ice. What's this?
Yes, that is actually a chunk of ice that dropped off one of the guy wires. And that just gives you an indication. You can see the curve there where it had formed around the guy wire. And then you can see just how heavy the ice accumulation was up there before it turned loose. And yes, I did have my hard hat on while I was out there.
Man, that reminds me. When trying to remember what year it was. It may have been 94. Yeah, it probably was 94. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and I didn't have a hard hat. Didn't own one. That was kind of stupid. I drove up to a tower in Frenchman's Bayou, Arkansas, which was near I-55, south of Osceola, north of West Memphis, and I was trying to get some diesel fuel flowing from the main tank to the day tank, so it would end up feeding the generator at Rock 98. And I was working there, and I got hit in the back with a big chunk of ice. Must have been going terminal velocity. It didn't hurt that bad, but I was okay. I did go and get in my car and back the car farther away from the tower after I got hit in the back by a chunk of ice.
Well, speaking of diesel, Kirk, that's one of the things. Stan, did you have any issues with diesel delivery, with availability in terms of keeping sites fueled, or
actually,
how many sites would have high fuel?
We've got one site up in Memphis. I don't believe that it ended up going on generator. The sites that I did have go on generator, you have 1,000-gallon propane tanks. So they were all running on propane. And with that size propane tank, I had several days. So I'll have to get them refilled here pretty soon, but never ran out of fuel, fortunately.
Do you remotely monitor the fuel levels in your tanks, or do you just trust they're full because you checked the last time you were up there?
Actually, the propane supplier, they have remote monitors on all their tanks that they can access, I believe, via cellular, and they keep track of it. So typically once a tank gets down to around 40-50% or so, they're calling me saying, hey, you want us to go out and refill the tank? So that remote monitoring service that a lot of the suppliers are using now has been a real benefit because I don't have to keep as close a track on fuel usage as I used to.
Yeah. Well, I realized just a little bit ahead of the ice storm that that I didn't have a way to remotely watch our fuel usage. Our tanks are diesel, and so I just took an IP security camera and mounted it on a piece of unistrut and pointed it at the gauge on the top of the tank and said, "Well, this will do." So we were able to watch the gauge and know when we needed to refuel, and it was Unfortunately, we were able to keep it fueled, but we went through about 4,000 gallons of diesel in that time. So, when our generator run right at about 20 gallons an hour. So you can do the math. That's a lot of many hours of generator time. And,
wow,
20 gallons an hour, 20 gallons an hour adds up quick.
It does. Yeah. Wow. Hey, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking more about this and maybe get some ideas for, why, if this storm was different than others we've had, and what we can do to be better prepared in the future. It's This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, and I'm really happy to tell you about, this is a Yealink phone, okay? It's just a pretty ordinary, actually a little bit extraordinary IP, VoIP telephone. What's extraordinary about this Yealink and this model is the SIP T46U, the SIP T46U. And what's cool about it, it's got a USB connector on the back, and it's for plugging in Wi-Fi. If they have a Wi-Fi stick that goes in here. If you can't run Ethernet to it, you can use it on Wi-Fi. But what's also cool is that this USB port on this Yealink phone is class compliant for audio devices. What? It's class compliant for audio devices. Well, leave it to Angry Audio right here to come up with something called the VoIP phone gizmo. What you do is you take off the stand in the back of the phone. You throw that away. Well, maybe keep it handy. And then you take the VoIP phone gizmo, which comes with the same foot or the same stand that the phone has, and you plug that on there. Let's see if I can get that on there. Yeah, it's easy peasy. It worked in the demo. Come on now. See if we can get that on there. There we go. Okay. Now you have a USB plug that goes into the class compliant port right there. It powers this input output device. This is designed using Angry Audio's famous ground isolation system. So the ground of your phone from the power supply and the audio ground are two different grounds. They're isolated from each other. And that means you just plug into the end of this with Studio Hub cables, and you get balanced audio in and out of the phone. You can send audio to the caller, mix minus typically is what you're going to send, and you can receive caller audio from this. And leaving the handset on the whole time, you're just using the buttons as if you were using external audio, using the headset, and it works great. It gives you beautiful audio in and out, balanced, ready to hook into your AOIP system, through a blade or a node, or directly into your audio console if you're using an analog audio console. Works great. The VoIP phone gizmo from Angry Audio. What a smart device. This was just brilliant. And check it out at angryaudio.com or from your favorite dealer. The VoIP phone gizmo from Angry Audio. Hey, our show is also brought to you by Max Connect, and they've got this tuner that is positively amazing. The quality is so high, it's terrific, and it's got different modules that are available for it. Suncast is going to bring up the web. There it is. It's the Max Connect RMT 416. You can buy it with one tuner card with 4 tuners in it, or 2 tuner cards, or 3 tuner cards, up to 4 tuner cards. You can have up to 16 AM, FM, HD, and weather band tuners in one box. You need to buy the correct module for you. They come in different combinations there, and you get audio out You get web-based control. You get this gorgeous interface that when you browse into it, you can see, not only hear, but you can see. And it's got a built-in IceCast server, so you can listen to any of the stations that are being received there. And then you can set them up for alerts and alarms, that kind of thing too. Wow, what a great device. And so many stations now. We're operating a bunch of stations, and we just can't get the employees to listen to all of them and report on anything that's wrong. Oh, you can have a check on your RDS as well. And for the HD model on your pad, or now they call, I think, PSD data. And then you can also get graphs. Look at these graphs that you can get over time. Your signal receive level. You can check and make sure the pilot is on or off. That your RDS is working. This is an awesome device. You go to maxconnect.com to check it out. The RMT416. Max Connect, remember, it's spelled funny. It's MAXXKONNECT. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. But this is worth checking out. Save your sanity. Man, does a great job. All right. Thanks a lot, Max Connect, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. We got another segment, and then finally a tip of the week to go here. Wow, guys, we've covered a lot of ground here. I should ask each of you, Stan, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to relate before we get into some ideas for being prepared for the next time?
Nothing I can think of. I do know that the IP phone and Angry Audio device, when I saw that, I was thinking, man, that would have been so handy 30 years ago when we were doing Marty remotes. But I am so thankful for the new technology now, as you are, I'm sure.
Well, the internet wasn't quite as good 30 years ago. So
no, Al Gore hadn't perfected it yet, I don't believe.
Hadn't perfected it yet, that's right. Gibson, is there anything that's on your mind that you want to say before we jump into some advice for the next storm?
Well, I mean, I too thought both of those products were pretty cool. I think for me, it's thinking about, maybe this is the last segment, which is thinking about how do you do better? And that is, where are your weak spots? What are the things what are the things that you think you need to know about a site? What do you really know about it? What's the gap there? And for me, that was, it's always, fuel. Where am I getting the fuel? And I think equally as important, do I have the appropriate contacts with my utility? Do I know who to call? Do I, in the case of an urban area like Nashville, it's an automated line. You're calling and you're entering the information. It's an automated service. They want to know something like the meter number or the account number. Do I have that information ahead of time? It's pretty easy. I'm sure Stan's got has a list of his, but when you go to your site, snap a picture of your electric meter, because it'll have a meter number on it. Probably has the utility name on it. And, you can always look at the geotag of the picture in your phone to say, oh, well, that's the site in, so-and-so. If it's not clear, or put a station sticker in the photo, put a business card, take a picture of something that allows you to go back and refer to it. I would say, knowing who to call at the utility, and fortunately, I've been, doing this for a while. I have some contacts in the utility. Doesn't mean that they'll always answer or that they're not busy with other projects or, what have you, but, knowing who to call, both having a plan for fueling, having an agreement in place. The company that owns us has a national fuel contract, and it's something that Stan may have with EMF. But when we have a relationship with a fuel provider, coast to coast, now it's not their name on the trucks that come out, but they contract with a local provider who, gives us priority in terms of, going up the hill. They're willing, like in our case, they could not get a traditional full-size fuel truck up the hill, but they brought a four-wheel drive pickup with a 750-gallon trailer, which they fueled 3 times for us. They did 3 successive days of fueling, to get us to a point, to carry us through. Can you identify that person ahead of time? Do you have a backup fuel company? Do you know, do you own a chainsaw? And I'm not recommending that you take on a chainsaw duty, but do you have a person, a company, somebody you could contract with or call who could clear the road? Is there a guy down the street who you just drive by and, oh, there's a bulldozer in his yard? I might want to stop and I might want to strike up a conversation with him, and maybe that would pay off. If you need something, the time to make the acquaintance is now, as they say, that, make the planning ahead of time, make the relationships, because it's relationships that pay off. And if you can, essentially keep your contacts fresh, as the storm comes, you might want to call the guy with the bulldozer and say, ask him if he's going to be around, and, if he could, help you out in the pinch, that sort of thing. And, sometimes it's you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Maybe you can do something for him. Maybe there's a promotion for him over the air, or, you might mention him, or somehow he could be involved in some, larger initiative like a food drive or something. But, just thinking about what you need, and usually the stuff that we don't deal with ourselves, the things we don't, we're dependent upon utilities, and, having those contacts and knowing who to get to, how to reach those people, what are their after hours numbers, because what we do know as broadcasters is that not every problem happens at noon on a Tuesday. It's going to happen at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, and you're going to need to find someone when it's not in business hours.
There's two things about what you're saying, Gibson, that are particularly timely. Of course, this is on our minds as we've just been through it, and some of us are still finishing up with it, I'm sure. But put on your calendar for maybe a week or two from now, when things have settled down, to explore and find out who the contacts are. Of course, if you see a crew foreman, that's great. That's how we got some power on here. But the crew foreman's not the person to call when you're off the air, when your power's out. But find out maybe who the PR contacts are, maybe who because we're broadcasters. So,
Right.
Not that we're as critical as a hospital or a retirement home, but we do fall in that pecking order somewhere, and we should, as broadcasters, have the right to know who we can contact at a public utility. And I tell you what, I've done a poor job of time management on this episode. That's just worse than usual. We got one more quick commercial break, and then I want to hear from Stan. Stan, you work with a big company that it must be a huge spreadsheet to keep track of all the utilities and the fuel suppliers and all the people that you might need to contact with K-Love and their, 12 or 1,300 transmitter sites. So I want to ask you, as soon as we come back from this last a commercial break, and we'll get a tip from each of you. We got to be out of here in about 8 minutes. Our show This Week in Radio Tech is also brought to you in part by, and I'm glad to talk about this, by the Henry Engineering Back UPS, and you can get yours from Broadcasters General Store. Now, the Back UPS is a cleverly designed piece of gear. I own about 7 or 8 of these things now at different radio stations. You've got so much equipment in broadcasting that only has one power entrance. Sure, you've got servers, maybe you've got some fancy Ethernet switches or routers that have 2 power entrances, but so many things that we depend on have just one power supply. And you need to keep that power supply being fed power, right? If you got a server, well, one plug goes to the UPS circuit and the other one maybe goes to shore power or another UPS. Well, if you've got equipment with one power supply, use the Back UPS. What you do is you feed it, the Back UPS, you feed it with 2 different power sources. One of them probably going to be your UPS. And the other one is going to be commercial power, or maybe a different UPS or generator power or something that's just different than the UPS. In fact, on your screen right now, you can see how they design, how they intend for this to be put in your circuit. It has one output. Well, it's a duplex output, but it's one output. And normally the Back UPS has the UPS supplied electricity coming into it, and that's what it feeds to your load. But the UPS dies, which they do. We had a couple of them die at our stations. Found out the hard way that there are some UPSs that when the power dies and the battery dies, they don't come back on by themselves. Now, we don't buy that model anymore, but there are certainly plenty of them out there, and you have to go manually push a button. Well, that can be difficult to do at the transmitter site. So the Back UPS will switch over really quickly to the line input. And when UPS power is restored, when it comes back online, and you can set the time delay, it'll switch back over to the UPS in. I've tested this thing over and over again. I've never had a computer or load glitch on the quick switchover between the two. I'm not saying that's guaranteed, but I've never had a problem with it. Love this thing. It'll also give you remote indications as to which mode that it's in. So that's a real blessing as well. The back UPS, designed by Hank Landsberg at Henry Engineering and available from Broadcasters General Store, bgs.cc. And they got sharp pencils, and they know the delivery times, and you need to check this thing out. They have all the broadcast gear that you need at Broadcasters General Store. Thanks a lot, BGS, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Stan, spotlight's on you for a moment. What advice do you have for being prepared for the next time this happens?
Well, Gibson kind of touched on some of it. A part of our annual inspections that we do at each one of our sites, we go around and photo document everything there, including a picture of the utility power meter that is feeding our site. And we make sure that it's got a clear view of the meter number on there. Also, I know you've heard Chris talk about our Network Operations Center and just how valuable they are to us. They have access to the power company contact information. We can tell them, okay, power appears to be out at WXYZ. They can immediately pull up from the knock and look and see who the service provider is for that. They'll have the meter number and the account number there, and they're able to get in touch with them and get an outage report started. And same for sites where we lease space. Like if we've got equipment at, say, an American Tower site and we don't actually own the meter, they're able to get in contact with ATC and get the process started there. So yeah, documentation. Always have some way to be able to get in touch with the power company. Also, another thing that I've done is I've got a large territory and I'm not able to listen or check on all my stations in a day's time, but I do have relationships with local broadcasters in each of the markets where I'm at, and I usually have contact information for the chief engineer there. So if we have a situation to where, okay, it looks like the power's out due to weather, I can place a call or text him and say, hey, is your site out? Is the power off? Are we on the air? And I can have him confirm if the power is out, or if he says, no, yours is still on the air. So we know that we just lost connectivity via remote control. So developing those local relationships in markets where you've got sites, it's always good to know who the chief engineer is for the other local stations. And I'm happy to do favors for them as they will for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's helpful, having somebody available to tell you information that you can't find out for yourself. Gibson, we got 60 seconds. Got a last word? You kind of got your good last word in before the break, but you have anything else that comes to mind?
I can vouch for the backups, the back UPS. Those are really helpful. Those are handy. If you have you notice some of the contact closures on there, you can program that to tell your remote control to call you. That's a status contact on that unit from Henry Engineering. And in the case that you just talked about where your UPS needs somebody to push a button, if it has a remote turn on button on the back, you could wire it to that backups so when it switches it, the backups could actually give it that command to turn it back on. So all kinds of options. But yes, I think planning is really the word of the day.
Suncast, if you still have that photo album ready, there's been this thing going on with people in social media, engineers, disc jockeys, a lot of disc jockeys, weather guys, weather ladies, weather people. And so we have one more picture to show you if you're ready with that. Look at that. There is Stan Carter. What do you think, Stan?
I actually have a different one with me holding a Peplink modem in the other hand, but that was the first one I put up.
I love it. This has taken the social media almost by storm. It seems like everybody in the media world is making these caricatures, and they're amazingly good, don't you think?
That one got pretty close from just a very short description of, hey, based on what I do for a living, put up a caricature of me. And that's what I got.
Now,
Well, it
looking
didn't put the
closely,
lanyard for his name tag over the K-Love word, because if it was truly K-Love on the shirt, the lanyard would hang over the top of it, but yet it would cover the K. So it came pretty out.
Only an engineer would notice that little discrepancy right there. But yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, I do the same. I pick apart technical stuff on movies all the time.
I'm waiting to see one from Gibson. Gibson, I'll watch your Facebook and see if one appears.
I don't think I have one, Kirk. You feel free to make one for me.
I'll have to find a picture of you. Guys, this has been delightful and fun. We are out of time, so thank you so much. Stan Carter, with field engineer at K-Love and Air One, has been with us, and also Gibson Prichard, the director of engineering here at Channel 5, News Channel 5 here in Nashville, and apparently he's on the road a bit too, he's visiting other EW Scripps properties. So thanks so much. Suncast, you've done a fantastic job. Thank you for producing our show again, as usual. And remember to tell your friends, and hey, subscribe. If you're watching this on, wherever you're watching it, make sure that you subscribe and you're alerted that we have a new episode. We got to go. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.